Hello everyone and welcome to Slash Film Daily for June 26, 2018. On today's episode, we'll talk about the latest TV and film news, which, as it turns out, today is mostly Marvel and Star Wars. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta, and joining me on today's podcast is Senior Writer Ben Pearson.
Hey, what's going on?
And writer Hoai-Tran Bui.
Hey everyone.
Ben, you haven't been around. Where have you been? What have you been up to?
Yeah, so this past weekend and into yesterday, I was in Lake Tahoe for an early press event for a movie called Bad Times at the El Royale, which is a film I'm very excited about. It comes out in October, so we still have a few months until the movie comes out. But they're doing this early press event, and they flew everybody to Lake Tahoe because that's the setting of the movie. Drew Goddard is the writer-director of this film. He's the guy who made Cabin in the Woods. He wrote The Martian. He's been attached to a ton of really, geek-friendly properties over the past few years, so people probably know who he is at this point. I'm very, very excited to see what he has in store. They showed us a little bit of footage, not too much, because the movie is still, there's a work in progress. Michael Giacchino is doing the score. He hasn't even started composing the score for the movie yet, so that sort of tells you where they are in terms of production. But yeah, what we saw was pretty good. It's the trailer is already out there, so maybe we'll link to that in the show notes so people can sort of get a sense of what we're talking about if you don't know. But the movie takes place at this hotel called the El Royale. It's a rundown old hotel that used to be a hotspot for celebrities and politicians to hang out, and a bunch of different characters show up and check in, and they collide and bounce off of each other in interesting ways. And there's like some murder stuff, there's some secret identity stuff going on. It's all very mysterious, and it's set in 1969. So it's a really interesting premise, and John Hamm and Jeff Bridges and Dakota Johnson and a bunch of people, and Nick Offerman are in this movie, so the cast is really great too. The footage that we saw, just briefly, there's a scene in the trailer where you see John Hamm's character walk through the back of a corridor in the back of this hotel, and it's like a secret passage, basically, where you can walk back behind each person's room and look in and see what the guests are doing in their room. It's a really creepy scene. And we saw the centerpiece of the footage that they showed us was like a 5-minute long single shot where John Hamm is walking back and forth, looking at these different characters in this room. And Cynthia Erivo, who is a Broadway actress and a singer, she is playing a soul singer in this movie, and she sings live on the set like a full 60s soul song while Hamm is sort of like watching her and seeing what's going on. And it's really cool. Yeah, she's like, they did 27 takes, and on the 27th one they nailed it, and that's the actual audio.
Oh, so it actually is a one shot. It's not like they stitched together things,
right? Yeah,
in a post-Birdman world.
Right. Yeah. It's 100% just a single shot, and it's really unnerving. And there's some other stuff that he sees in there that I won't get into right now, but it's cool. The event was pretty awesome. I got to interview Drew Goddard on a yacht out on Lake Tahoe, so that was an experience that I've never had before. So yeah, you'll be, if you stay tuned to Slash Film in the coming days, you'll see some of my coverage pop up on the site.
Wait, I have one follow-up question about this, Ben.
Yes.
So for the interview on the yacht, do they come and pick up each interviewer, and then bring them out, or is there like a batch of people that are brought up there?
Yeah, it's sort of a batch situation. They shuttled us from the hotel to a lake house, basically, like a huge lake house that's owned by the hotel. And we were just like standing on the shore, basically, and a little boat had to come out and get, I think it was like 5 or 6 of us at a time, and take us out to the middle of the lake where this big yacht was anchored out there. And then they had the whole, camera set up and everything on the top floor of this yacht. So, yeah, pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, that is crazy. The trailer for this film looks crazy. I don't even know. I mean, you described it, I think, very aptly, but I still don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and I'm excited because I talked to Drew Goddard a little bit like off camera and said that I was really excited for the film, and he said that he was glad to hear that because they held back a lot in the trailer, and the movie goes to some really, really wild places by the end that they haven't even really hinted at yet. So I'm very excited for this. It comes out on October 5th, so if anybody's interested, definitely like add it to your release calendars.
And coming from the guy that made Cabin in the Woods, that kind of scares me. Going to some wild places. But okay, let's get into the news. Let's start off with, there's a lot of Kevin Feige stories because the Ant-Man and the Wasp junket just happened this weekend in Pasadena. I was there. My coverage will run a little bit later. But all these news bits are coming out of people talking to Kevin Feige. And let's start off with, just one of them. And that is that Marvel wants to build, the MCU into having 50% female superheroes, or over 50% female superheroes. HT, what is going on here?
Yeah, so the representation for female superheroes is pretty lackluster when you think about it, because only next year we'll be getting our first solo female superhero movie, and that'll be Captain Marvel in the 10 years of the MCU.
Wait, before you go on, who do we have so far? We have Black Widow, we're getting Captain Marvel.
Yes.
We have
the Wasp, who's got double billing with Ant-Man. We have a bunch of other supporting characters too, the Guardians like Nebula and Gamora. We have Scarlet Witch. Mostly supporting characters, and a lot of them don't really exist outside of, for example, like Scarlet Witch exists outside of the sort of the
Avengers
area
films.
Of like the
Same thing with like Valkyrie and Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, exactly. So, Kevin Feige is admitting that, it's time for a change. And in response to a question from Screen Rant, he's saying that his goal for the future of the MCU is that to have the roster for all the Marvel superheroes to be over half of them female, just as many female superheroes as male superheroes, or more if possible, and hopefully not as many played by white men named Chris.
This seems like a lofty goal. It almost seems impossible to me at this point. Like, we listed, I think, 6 or 7 female superheroes, and there's been 20 films thus far, and most of them have multiple superheroes. That's a lot of guys. So if you were going to get it to a 50-50 parity with the male superheroes, there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, the odds are pretty stacked against them. But to be fair, they're not really lacking for female superheroes in the Marvel comics, and Feige has also expressed interest in the idea of a all-female superhero team, hopefully the A-Force or something like that, and that might help sort of balance the scales a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like to get to that point, though, it's going to take some years, because you need to build up these, you can't do the DC thing where you just have them all, introduced in a movie. You need to, want to have all those female superheroes come together.
That's very true. I mean, at the rate they're going, it doesn't seem like it. But, after Avengers 4, the slate is basically clean, and we could just see a explosion of new characters introduced just like right off the bat in movies and ensemble movies. So it could change the game. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, let's talk a bit about Spider-Man, the Homecoming sequel. Over the weekend, Tom Holland posted a video on Instagram saying he had gotten a script for the untitled sequel. And Tom Holland is notoriously known for spoiling things. And that has been kind of a joke, which Marvel and Disney has kind of used to comic effect. And in this video, he shows the iPad of showing the script, and it has this title page that says Spider-Man Far From Home, which it turns out is the official title of the next Spider-Man movie. Kevin Feige confirmed it at the junket. We did already know that the movie will take Peter Parker to international locations, probably mostly London, because the film's filming in London. So the Far From Home seems to gel with the rumors that there might be like a foreign exchange student subplot to this sequel. But I know, HT, you wrote up a bunch of this Kevin Feige stuff that we were talking about, and he did comment on this title. What does it mean?
Yeah, other than confirming that the title is official in the accidental reveal by Tom Holland, Feige said that, quote, "It's similar to Spider-Man Homecoming. I won't say what the meanings are, but we enjoy that title because, like Homecoming, it's full of alternate meanings. And we like continuing the home thing with little Spidey symbol in the home." So he's saying that there's a double meaning to Spider-Man Far From Home. So it could mean Far From Home literally, like we talked about with him going to London, other European locations, but it could mean something else entirely.
It's also interesting because it seems like they're going for this kind of like home motif with this Spider-Man trilogy. So I can't even imagine. Ben, do you have any ideas what the third Spider-Man could be titled? Going with this home aesthetic.
Too Fast, Too Home.
Yeah, I think Spider-Man Home on the Range, and it's a Western.
If anybody out there has some good ideas, send them to peter@slashfilm.com. And if we actually get any funny or good ideas, I'll mention it on tomorrow's episode. Feige was also talking, or was asked about when we can expect the first Captain Marvel trailer and when we will finally learn the title for Avengers 4. Of course, in his own Feige way, he, does not tell us, solid, concrete answers. But HC, what did he say?
Yeah, in typical Feige fashion, he kind of vaguely answered the questions. The Captain Marvel trailer, he said, is, quote, "still a few months out," quote, which means we won't likely see it attached to the upcoming Ant-Man and the Wasp release or when San Diego Comic-Con rolls around next month either. So a few months out could mean it will be released even in the fall. So we're not sure yet, and we'll be waiting with highly bated breath for that trailer. And the Avengers 4 title is, he also continued his tight-lipped stance, saying that that'll be after the Captain Marvel teaser, probably, when he announces the title for Avengers 4. So towards the end of the year, or sometime in that area.
Interesting. Okay, let's move on from Marvel for a bit. Let's go to let's actually talk about Get Out 2. Jordan Peele is actually flirting with the idea of doing a sequel to, his critically acclaimed horror hit. Ben, is this going to happen?
I don't know. Variety spoke with Jason Blum, who is the producer of Get Out and the head of Blumhouse Productions, and he had a very, very short quote about the possibility of Get Out 2. He said, "If Jordan wants to do a sequel, I'll do it in a second, but it has to come from Jordan Peele. I think he's flirting with the idea." So that's admittedly not a lot to go on, but it does indicate that Jordan Peele has not completely thrown away the idea of making Get Out 2. He was talking about a potential sequel earlier this year, saying that he would definitely consider it. He loves the universe. He feels like there's more story to tell there. That there are some loose ends that he could wrap up in a sequel, but he was really sort of non-committal about it. And it sounds like, this is a very recent interview with Jason Blum, and it sounds like Jordan Peele is still thinking about this even now. So, the idea that he's still considering it makes me wonder if he actually has some real ideas brewing. In terms of what Get Out 2 could actually be about, that's a little bit more difficult to to guess. The only thing I can really think of is, I guess, spoilers for Get Out. At the very end of the movie, his girlfriend, Allison Williams Rose, the character's name is Rose. It's played by Allison Williams. She is left for dead, but she's still technically alive at the end of the movie. So maybe it could be about her sort of trying to enact some sort of vengeance on Daniel Kaluuya's Chris character. I don't know. That seems a little too trite to me, and Jordan Peele is proven to be a very thoughtful filmmaker, so I don't think he would just go for the easy road. And he's also said before that he's not interested in just doing a cash grab sequel, so he would really have to have something important to say with this movie. So I don't know. Do you guys think that there's any hope for a Get Out 2, or is that something you'd even be interested in?
Well, I don't think I would be interested in it, and I really can't see a good way of doing it right. Your idea sounds logical. At first, the first thing that came to my mind was, a prequel, but as far as we know, no one has, gotten out before that character. So I'm not sure if that would be interesting at all. Maybe you could do a prequel cut to the sequel, the sequel that you pitched. HT, I know this was one of your favorite movies of that year. Do we need a Get Out sequel?
I would really not like a Get Out sequel just because it's so concise and biting in the way that it's all self-contained and has like one specific simple message. And I think that a second film could kind of dilute that message and just make it not as thrilling or as novel as the first one was.
At the same time, you do say that, but looking at my Twitter feed and seeing, the world we are now in, which is even more horrifying than it was, when Get Out was released last year. And I'm sure there's some interesting parallels and things that a filmmaker and artist of Jordan Peele's nature could bring to a horror film. I just don't know what those would be.
Well, the good news is he already has another movie that's in the works. It's called Us, and it comes out in March of next year. And that one stars Lupita Nyong'o and Elizabeth Moss and Winston Duke from Black Panther. And that's also being called a quote-unquote new nightmare from Jordan Peele. So it seems like maybe he's tapped into another of those social thriller kind of vibe things that he was talking about with Get Out.
For sure. We've been talking a lot about MoviePass, and now AMC has introduced their A-List subscription service, which I think is out today. So I think you can subscribe to that now. But other movie theater chains are also going to be trying out these movie subscription services. Alamo Drafthouse has announced that they are testing their own subscription plan called Alamo Season Pass. HT, what do we know about it?
So Alamo Drafthouse announced that it will begin testing Alamo Season Pass this summer, and it'll be testing it in Yonkers, New York, where the test run will begin on July 18th and run through the summer. It's only a beta test for now, but it's kind of hopeful for a lot of indie moviegoers because this Alamo Drafthouse is a really beloved independent theater chain, and it's notorious for banning attendees from having their cell phones inside the theater. So, ironically, you will need your phone to use this service. But they'll start testing in Yonkers, New York, and then presumably begin expanding once the test run is successful. But it will initially, there aren't many details about this other than the fact that they're launching this beta launch and that it's for Alamo Victory loyalty members. But we'll see how well it goes. Well,
I will say this much. A lot of talk has gone around about the sustainability of these kind of subscription services. MoviePass is doing it for $10 a month. AMC is doing it for $20 a month. And even at that value, you could see 3 movies a week, and that's 12 movies a month or so. That's a lot of movies and a lot of money that they're paying to the movie companies and distributors. They could be taking a total bath for these subscription services, but a company like Alamo Drafthouse, I'm not sure if many of the listeners out there have been to one, but they're, really popular in Austin, Texas, where it started. I've been to the one there for a couple film festivals and stuff, and it is, one of my favorite movie theaters in the world. Slash film managing editor Jacob Hall, it's his favorite theater. But the thing about it is you go there and it's almost like a dinner in a movie experience. You go there to order an entree or order appetizers and, you eat during the movies. So a place like that, I think, is more willing to probably do a subscription service and make money because they're going to make all the money on those food costs. Do you know what I mean? Like those percentages on those food costs are very tiny, and that's where they're going to make the money, even if they lose the money on the tickets. So it'll be interesting to see, what Alamo does with this, and if they do anything differently than both the AMC and Movie Pass plans. I actually, I don't have this on the docket here, but I did see today, Drew McWeeny, who's a writer in the film world, was tweeting about AMC's plan because he was trying to sign up, his whole family for these AMC A-list, subscriptions. And it brought to attention something I didn't know about the AMC A-list subscription, and that is that you cannot be a person under the age of 18 and have an A-list subscription. So he's mad because he can't, sign up his kids, his family. And I was thinking about that. I was like, is this a legal thing? And the more and more I thought about it, I was like, no, what it probably is that AMC knows that kids are more likely to use this service to its full extent. Like, I can imagine as a kid, if I had this, going to the movies every weekend and, seeing the 3 in one day. And I'm assuming that they don't want kids to be having these passes because, the people they want is to get the adults to come to the movies more. Ben, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think, from a business perspective for them, like their ideal thing would be for everybody to sign up for this and then just to sort of forget about it, almost like a gym membership, and like barely show up here and there, right? Because that's the best case scenario for them. People just to barely use it enough to stay subscribed. So you might be onto something there. I'm not really sure. I guess the counterpoint to your argument there might be that kids could theoretically buy more concessions and stuff if they were there all the time. But I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll see if AMC reacts to that because I've seen quite a bit of outrage on my Twitter feed from parents. But on the other side of the coin, if you do have an A-list subscription, you can buy a ticket for your kid and reserve the seat with you. You just have to pay for it. So I'm not sure if that would help or hurt. But let's move on to Star Wars. We got a bit of Star Wars news here. And let's start first with the spin-off films. We talked last week about how the spin-off films were apparently put on hold. That turned out to not be the case. Disney came out and kind of said, they're not on hold. We're still developing spin-off films. But now we have an update on what is going on with the rumored and announced, I guess none of them have been formally announced, but the rumored Star Wars spin-off movies. Ben.
Yeah, I think really when Lucasfilm put out their statement last week, it was almost kind of saying the same thing that Collider's initial report said. It was saying like, oh, we're still developing some of these spin-off movies, but Collider's initial report actually said that the David Benioff and D.B. Weiss movies were still in the works, and Rian Johnson's trilogy of spin-off films were still in the works. So it was a very weird thing. This whole thing strikes me as very odd. It's almost like they're trying to do damage control for something that they are admitting to at the same time. But the Hollywood Reporter had a new report recently about what the goings-on behind the scenes of these Star Wars spin-off movies, and basically it sort of reiterates a lot of what we've already talked about. These films apparently are going to be on hold for at least for the time being, but the Boba Fett movie, which is supposed to be directed by James Mangold, he is co-writing that script with Simon Kinberg. James Mangold is the director of Logan, for those who don't know. That movie apparently could be reconfigured to be smaller and less expensive in the wake of Solo: A Star Wars Story's underperforming box office. So that's
and we should note that's the reason why that is a failure at the box office. Not because not enough people went to see it. It was just the budget, because of they had to reshoot almost the entire movie. Right.
Yeah, it's the most expensive Star Wars movie ever, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, that's exactly right. The news that this project, this Boba Fett movie, might be reconfigured, it also came along with the word that this project wouldn't come together until James Mangold is done with Ford versus Ferrari, which is a period racing drama that he has in the works with Matt Damon and Christian Bale starring in that. So it seems like there's going to be some time for Lucasfilm to figure out what's going on. As far as the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie, that apparently is still up in the air. That, you know, that's like in Collider's initial report. We're basically just not sure if that movie is happening at all now. It seems like that could have been the one that was that had some stages, some space reserved for filming at Pinewood Studios in London, and that has been canceled. And like you said, Peter, none of that was ever officially announced. So we're still not 100% sure exactly what was going on there. But it seems like none of these projects are going to be happening anytime soon anyway.
Yeah, and another rumor that has popped up today, actually, is that Star Wars Episode 9 might bring back Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, this seems kind of insane to me. Ben, what do we know?
Yeah, so this one is way less concrete, and because it comes from a tabloid called The Sun, which I think is out of the UK, and it's one of those things that doesn't really make a ton of sense when you think about it, but there is some precedent for this to happen. So Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan, for him to show up in Episode 9. For him to show up, I guess, as like a Force ghost or something, that would sort of throw off the continuity of the Star Wars movies, because we've already seen Alec Guinness, who played Obi-Wan in the original trilogy, as a Force ghost. So for them to sort of switch that up, and all of a sudden, if they were to do like a big Force ghost party of like all of, everyone involved with the Skywalker movies at the end of Episode 9, it would be very strange for them to suddenly revert back to the Ewan McGregor version of that character, right? So Brad was speculating that the only way that this might work is that if Ewan McGregor was coming back to provide some voiceover work, which he actually did in The Force Awakens. So there was what was it, Rey's Force memory scene? I forget what
they called it a Force back.
Yes, the Force back. She, touched the lightsaber for the first time and heard some re-recorded dialogue from Frank Oz as Yoda and some archived audio of Sir Alec Guinness and also Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. It was like a mixture of all of their voices, reaching out to her across the Force kind of thing. So there's a chance that if McGregor comes back for Episode 9, it could be in that capacity as well.
It just seems so weird to me because Obi-Wan Kenobi really doesn't have any connection to any of the characters currently alive in the Star Wars universe. I guess, maybe Princess Leia, but, I think we're all expecting she's not going to be in this final film.
Right.
So, I don't know.
I agree with Ben. I think it's probably the case of just him coming back to do a voiceover of some sort.
But what is the purpose there? Like, Rey isn't going to know who that is unless there is some kind of relation. But I think we've already kind of, passed that that building.
Maybe it's like Finn or somebody else, has like an awakening, or a different character entirely has some sort of Force awakening, or maybe Rey, like, I don't know, levels up to like a Super Saiyan Jedi kind of thing, where she, where she like powers up and hears the voices of every Jedi or something like that. This could, again, this is coming from a tabloid, so
yeah.
There's, it might not happen at all. But if it does, maybe they'll get Samuel L. Jackson to come back and do a little voice thing for Mace Windu, and all of it, sort of weaves into this larger tapestry of like the entire history of every Force user, that she like has that at her disposal or something like that. I don't know.
That actually reminds me of a scene from Avatar: The Last Airbender where Aang gets in touch with all of his past reincarnations in this really beautiful sort of trippy sequence, and I could see that happening in Episode 9. Not to bring it into like a nerdy animated standpoint.
I don't know. I feel like this must be, the communication, the cross communications here, with the, they were in pre-production for this Obi-Wan movie. Maybe, someone in the UK heard about that and thought it was for episode 9. I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably the most likely response.
Or there's also the possibility, as you mentioned, that this is just a tabloid newspaper making stuff up. But I don't even know how that works because, yeah. Anyways, let's move on to one last thing. Let's talk about the Predator trailer. There was a trailer that came out, I think, last month, and it was kind of met with I want to say
tepid response.
Yeah, I want to say lukewarm, but I think that's even giving it too much credit. I don't know anybody that liked that trailer. I guess it opened with this kind of Amblin-esque quality, which I appreciated, but where it went, I was like, oh, this is not the movie I want to see.
Is Amblin something you want to associate with the Predator, though?
Yeah, that too. I don't know. But anyways, Fox has released a new trailer for The Predator. It is a red band trailer, which means it's R-rated and full of blood. And boy, is it full of blood. And I don't know. Let me start this off with a reaction. You can first of all, you can watch this trailer on slashfilm.com. Ben has done a full breakdown of the trailer as well. But boy, is this bloody, and this is the trailer that they should have opened with, I think. It really reminds me of a Predator movie, and it's now I'm finally excited to see this. HT, do you have any thoughts on this trailer?
So, don't be mad at me. I've never seen a Predator movie. The only exposure I've had to Predator is through the Predator versus Alien movie.
Oh, no.
See, I'm not mad at you for the first statement, but the second statement, I'm kind of, I feel bad.
Yeah. So I was like, what is this dumb, really dark, dimly lit in that case too, just like aliens beating each other up movie. So I've never had a fondness or affection for Predator, but I was impressed by this trailer. I liked how moody it was and how it kind of tapped into this PTSD sort of subplot with the soldiers who first run into the Predator. And I don't really know what's going on because I'm not really well versed in the mythology, but there's a bigger Predator, and that's a really cool reveal. So I liked it. I don't really have anything to say other than that looks like a Predator.
Ben, do you have any thoughts, or did you see anything while you were breaking down this whole thing for the site?
Yeah, I really like this trailer a lot. I think Sterling K. Brown looks so cool in this movie, and no offense to Jacob Tremblay, the young actor who is in that Amblin-esque opening of the previous trailer, but opening this trailer with Sterling K. Brown, talking about how much of a badass he is, basically, is a way better introduction to this world, I think. And Peter, like you mentioned, is so violent and very much in line with what you would expect from an actual Predator movie. I've only seen the first Predator from 1987. I think I saw one of the Alien vs. Predator movies, but I don't even remember which one. Those are basically useless. So I'm not too fluent on the deeper mythology either, HT, but this does look really cool, I think. The Super Predator, which is what one of the Fox representatives told me that they're calling that creature internally, is pretty huge. I mean, it's way bigger than a normal Predator, which is a pretty hefty beast. And this thing, it seems like this movie could be leading toward a team up of the regular Predators teaming up with the humans in order to take down this super Predator creature. So I'm excited to see that, because that's definitely a change of pace from what has happened in previous Predator films, and this definitely feels like a Shane Black movie to me, which is what I'm excited about the most in this whole thing. That Shane Black is the writer-director behind this project, or co-writer. I think he co-wrote it with Fred Decker, who co-wrote the Monster Squad with him back in the 80s as well. This looks like a lot of fun. I'm totally in.
Yeah, you kind of finally get some of his style and some of his humor, which I think was, you really didn't get a sense of it in the first trailer. And I don't know, what do you guys think about, it seems like every franchise at some point, this is the direction they go into, where they go into the direction of the bad guy has to become the good guy and team up with the good guys. The Jurassic series has done that.
Jurassic World.
Yeah.
And Terminator, yeah.
why do we keep on? Why?
I guess there's only so many ways to go, right? Like you can't just recycle the same bad guys over and over and over again because it gets boring. Once you hit, 4 or 5 movies in a franchise, it's like, well, I guess you gotta switch things up. I think Terminator was probably an anomaly in that James Cameron swapped it so quickly between the first and second film.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. There might be.
I think it's when like the monster becomes the face of the franchise and, the toy and the thing that everyone recognizes, they inevitably start sort of connecting and sympathizing with it. And so I think that's why it's just kind of like our innate human tendency to want to find a deeper connection in these monsters.
But I feel like once we find this deeper connection, they are no longer monsters and no longer as exciting.
Exactly. You just wrote the essay, Peter.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not advocating for the 80s where we got 20 movies with Freddy and Jason as the bad guys, never teaming up with the good guys. But I don't know. It just seems like I don't know. I don't have a fleshed out thought on this, but it just I wanted to bring that up. But we have reached the end of the news. Ben, where can people find more of your work online?
You can find me at slashfilm.com. You can find me on Twitter at Ben Pearson, and you can hear me on my other podcast, the Not Just New Movies podcast, at notjustnewmovies.com.
HD, where can we find you?
You can also find me every day at slashfilm.com, and I'm on Twitter at Hoai-Tran Bui.
And you can find me at slashfilm.com, along with all the stories that we talked about today. You can find me at slashfilm on all social media. You can find this podcast, Slash Film Daily, published on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, Spotify, on every weekday. And please, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, send them to peter at slashfilm.com. Please go rate and review this podcast on iTunes. Spread the word, tell your friends, and we'll see you tomorrow.